What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some different wide receiver press releases. We're going to be talking about the names of each press release, the exact situation to use the press release, and then the technique behind it to make it the most efficient way possible. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and you would like to get faster, more explosive, and want specific wide receiver gym exercises to do, check out that very first link in the description below for our 16-week wide receiver gym workout plan. It's a 4-month daily schedule where we map out what you should be doing every day in the gym, give you sets and reps and examples of each exercise. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested in that, fellas. Let's get started with this video. So now, first release we are going to be going over here is something called a diamond release. So I'm going to play this thing full speed. I'm going to go over the name of the release, the situation we use it in, and then the technique in that order for every single press release today. So a diamond release, that's the name of it. You're going to use this against an inside shade press coverage DB. So when it comes down to choosing a press release or picking a press release, what we were trying to look for is the DB's leverage, the DB's distance from me, and then the specific coverage that he is in. I call that a pre-snap process. You want to make sure that you identify those three things every time that you come up to the line of scrimmage. So we see that the DB is lined up inside leverage. That means that he is trying to take away the inside route. Does not want to let me run a slant, a dig, a post, force everything to the outside. So now, if I have to run a route like a slant, and I see that he's inside shade, fairly close, maybe about a yard away, I know that a diamond release is something I could use. A lot of people, and a diamond release would only be used on a slant route or maybe like a 5-yard under route. So you got slant, 5-yard under. That is the only time that we would want to use this. And I'm going to explain why. Because what a lot of receivers will do is that when he's inside shade like this, I'm going to try to attack him and then cut across and go in front of his face, or give him a quick move outside, then take the inside release. This DB is not going to give that up, fellas. His job is to protect the inside. That's why it's important to identify his leverage. His leverage decides what release I'm going to use. So a diamond release is what you would want to do. A diamond release is 3 hard steps. So that's 1, 2, 3. 3 steps attacking the DB's outside shoulder and outside hip. The goal of this release is we are trying to sell like I'm doing a quick outside release and running a fade for 3 specific steps. Because my goal is to get him, like I said, to flip his hips and commit so we could slip underneath and have spacing on the slant. Because a lot of wide receivers, what they'll do is they'll force the inside release. I have an inside breaking route like a slant, even a post, even a dig. I got to force the inside release. I got to cross his face. But this DB's just going to get hands. He's going to stay patient. He's going to keep his leverage and just force us all the way to the inside. So what we want to do is the goal is to flip his hips. But I have to be a salesman. I have to sell this thing. Everybody's biggest fear, and everybody asks this question, well, what if I do this release, coach, but he just sits to the inside, then I run into him? Well, okay, number one, we shouldn't be thinking about losing in the first place. We shouldn't be thinking, well, if I do this, what if he's going to play it well. He's just going to sit. We shouldn't be thinking about losing. We should be thinking, what can I do to get him to flip his hips? And you have to sell the release. So you have to make sure that we are running hard. We are running in full speed. Your hips and your shoulders, watch his hips and shoulders on this. They're committed to the outside. He's not cheating it. His hips and his shoulders aren't starting to turn back to the inside before his cut gets down. He's taking 3 full strides, running hard and committing the upper half. That's a recipe for getting this DB to open up. Now, another way that you can make sure that he opens up is beat him with your speed a couple times leading up to this. Let's say the play call is like a toss left concept. The running back, he's running to the left. Your job is just to run off this DB. Maybe let's give him like a little jab inside and go. Let him feel your speed, because now when you give him the same exact look, he is more likely to open up. So a diamond release, we'd want to use this against inside shade press when I'm running a slant or a 5-yard under. So great job by this wide receiver running this diamond release to perfection and then being able to get separation on that slant. Okay, so the next release we're going to be talking about here is something called a split release, S-P-L-I-T, split release. So split release is pretty much exactly how it sounds. You're going to be taking your feet and splitting them, trying to give like kind of a hesitation to a DB, okay? So split release. I'm going to play at full speed, then we'll talk about the details. So Dez Bryant comes off here, split release, freezes the DB, then able to get up into this post route and win over the middle. So let's talk about it. So split release. I would say you could use this release against any type of coverage. You could use this against head up, which is probably my personal favorite to use this against. You could use this against inside shade, or you could use this against outside shade. Because remember, my pre-snap process, how I pick the release that I choose, is based on leverage, based on distance and based on the type of coverage. So this is press coverage right up on the line. He is in head up coverage. That's considered the leverage. He's not inside. He's not outside. So that means if we have to run a post route, right? Ideally, what type of release would we want to take on a post route? Inside or outside? Probably want to take an inside release, right? So when you do this split release, the goal is to try to maybe get him to bite to the outside, get him to freeze, take the inside release, and then break up and go. So we like this against head up because this release here, when you split your feet, you have kind of a two-way go. What do I mean by that? I mean that you're coming to balance on this split release. So Dez Bryant could very easily push off of his inside leg and take the outside release. Very easily push off the outside leg and take the inside. So it could go either way. That's the beauty of the split release, and that's the beauty of using it against head-up coverage. So that's when you would use it. So what's the mechanics here? The mechanics I like to say is that your front foot, so the foot that's up, which is his right foot, and you could obviously do this the other way, his front foot goes out and his back foot comes up. You don't want to think back foot goes out and front foot goes out as well because you're going to be super wide with your base. You bring your back foot up to balance and you bring your front foot out. That is the type of movement. Now, we obviously need some twitch to this. This should be the quickest twitch of your feet possible. You're trying to shoot your cleats into the grass. You're trying to hesitate for a second to get a reaction out of this DB. So now, you see when Dez Bryant does this split release, what does he not do? He doesn't pop up and expose his chest, and his feet are not super close together. His feet are just outside of his shoulder frame. He's got a slight bend to his knees, and he's in a good pad level position. He's got like a slight lean forward. Everybody's biggest fear on this split release is that they are going to split, and then they're going to be up tall, and this DB is going to get hands and jam. DB coaches will actually teach that too. Like, oh, when you see him do that split release, jam him because he's going to expose his chest. Not if I stay low. I tell my wide receivers to pretend like they're standing under a really small doorway. And if you pop up, you're going to hit your head on the door. Stay under the doorway. Make sure we're splitting those feet. We're being quick about it. And then let's get up into the route. So the reason why I like this split release also against head up coverage is it serves to be a reaction, right? So when a DB lines up and he is head up press, like right in front of your face, he's got three decisions to make. He could either sit there, which is most likely what he'll probably do, or if he's creative, he could shade to the outside, or if he's creative, he could shade to the inside. So let's say we did this split release, and because you are getting to balance, because you have that slight bend, you're in a good pad level, your feet are just outside your shoulders, let's say this DB jumps to the inside. He's trying to disguise the leverage. We could very easily just plant off of my right foot and take the outside release. It's easy because you're coming to balance. You're not splitting and having your feet super close together. You're not crazy wide. You can just split and react off of him. If he shades to the outside, I can just take the inside just like I'm doing. If he's head up, I could give him a little head and shoulder fake to the outside and take the inside. It's easy when you go from that split release. This is one of my favorite releases to work. Now, let's say, for example, I said you could use it when he's got a specific leverage. Let's say he lines up pre-snap inside leverage, and you have to run this same post. You could do this split release, and then maybe throw like a little jab with the inside foot to attack the DB's leverage, hold him to the inside, because remember, when he's inside leverage, his goal is to prevent the slant. So maybe we make him think. We split, you give a jab with the right foot, then take the outside release, just to hold him there, fellas. So that's the split release. That's when you would use it, and that's the technique behind it. Let's play at full speed. Great job by Dez Bryant hitting the split. There's a little hesitation element to it, fellas. That's what you want to focus on. So now, next release we're going to be going over is something called a slide release. So this is going to be a slide crossover release more specifically. So you got diamond release. That's the first one we went over. Second one that we went over is a split. Now the third one is going to be a slide crossover release. So this builds off of something called a slide and go release, something that you see guys like Davante Adams, Justin Jefferson use a ton of. So let's watch what this wide receiver does here. So he's going to punch with this front foot, slide to the outside, and give a move. So he comes off, slides outside, gives a crossover, and then is able to run and win on this slant. So I like this on the same thing as the diamond release. I like it on a slant route, or I like it on a 5-yard under. Now, the slant and the 5-yard under, in this situation, it's pretty much the same idea as the diamond release. You're trying to accomplish the same things a little bit differently, but Honestly, fellas, like I only like it on these two routes when they're later developing. So like maybe you're running a slant route and maybe you're like the second or third read. Maybe you're running a slant route and it's an RPO. So the QB's doing some zone read action in the back. It takes a little bit longer because obviously this slide release is a little bit more patient than that quick 3-step diamond release, right? Now on the 5-yard under, maybe you're like a backside 5-yard under. Maybe we're reading like a levels concept and the quarterback's coming to you second. So you're a little bit more patient with your release. That's when you'd want to use it. And it would be the same scenario. Inside shade press coverage. DB's trying to take away the inside, so we have to make him think we're doing a fade with this type of release. Now you might think, why would the DB think I'm doing a fade? I'm literally shuffling off the ball. That doesn't make it look like a fade. Yes and no. It does because it's the same thing as a different release that we use. So how many times have you seen wide receivers do this little slide like Davante Adams? They'll slide to the outside, DB holds patient inside, then they just take off and go run a fade. That's what builds into this release. It's no different than that diamond release, fellas. Guys are so concerned with, well, what if he doesn't bite? What if he doesn't bite? You have to do things that set him up to make him bite on the release. You have to do things ahead of time that's going to get him to open up and jump on this thing. So maybe a couple times this wide receiver, or maybe on film, he's done this. Let's talk about like a real game scenario. DBs are smart. They watch a lot of film. DB coaches watch a lot of film. They look for consistencies in what you guys do. So if you're always doing a slide and go on every fade ball in the red zone, you got to run a slant. Let's make it look the same. Let's give the same jab. Let's slide. Let's make sure that we attack at the same angle on a 45. Now this DB might get a little over anxious. We hit this crossover move. We step outside the frame. Your hips and your shoulders are selling to the outside, and that gets him off the platform, and we got a ton of separation. So it's all just building, fellas. That's the main thing about this slide release. I like it against inside shade press. I like to use it on later developing routes. Now the technique behind this, personally, you could do one of two things to set you up for this slide. I call this first thing called a prep step, or you could use something called a kick step. So a prep step is where you take your front foot and you give this little jab to the inside. Pretty much, this is not a step. You're not trying to sell anything. You're just taking this step for explosion. You step, you're trying to push off of that. So that gets you into the slide and that gets you upfield. That attacks you on the 45-degree angle, which makes him think you're doing that slide and go release. Because when you do that slide and go, you don't do that punch step and slide flat and then go run a fade. You slide at an angle, then take off, because you know you got to get upfield. It's got to look the same way on this slant route. So, or you could take this back foot and do something called a kick step, which is where you kick it behind your front foot, you load up your hips, and then you shoot to the outside. Either one is totally fine by me, but it just sets you up. That gets you into the shuffle. And then it's just that simple crossover move that we all know and love, that we've all done before, and that's what gets you separation on that slide release. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like a 4-month wide receiver gym workout schedule, everything that wide receivers need to do in the gym, guys, probably over 200 or 300 gym exercises in there, all sets and reps broken down for you. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested. I'll see you guys next time.